Hey, Kenny.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm great. How are you today?
I am doing well. And the reason why is we have our sponsor, Aftershocks, for this episode. Super excited to have Aftershocks on because what we're talking about is safety and be able to have situational awareness. And Aftershocks makes headphones that are wireless headphones that use bone conduction.
Yeah, so bone conduction is not in your ear. It's actually vibrations that go through your cheekbones. And that gives you that situational awareness and still spatial ability to know where you're at and hear the things around you.
Yeah, and I use headphones quite a bit on my training. I did a long training yesterday. Normally, I would have headphones in my ear or in one ear. Gets uncomfortable after a while. I tried the Aftershocks on a long training session yesterday. First thing you notice is how lightweight they are. Second thing you notice is how comfortable they are right on your cheekbone. I was able to fit it underneath a cycling helmet, and the music sounded great. I was able to listen to music and still hear traffic and still hear the things around me.
Yes, even at low levels.
Even at low levels.
Sounds good.
Went for a run afterwards. Didn't even think about it. They disappear, which is what you want in a headphones. And my ears weren't fatigued afterwards. Impressed like crazy with these things.
Yeah, I hate having things in my ears for long periods of time, and I don't usually like headphones at all when I'm running on the street, especially because I want to know what things are around me. And this is the only pair that I've been able to actually keep the music going at a nice level and be situationally aware of everything around me, which is great. I love them.
What's cool is Aftershocks has multiple kind of models. They have a model for running. They have a swim-specific model, which is fantastic. And they also have it for your office. So I know people that use headphones a lot in the office, they get a lot of fatigue. They have a model that is great for folks that are spending all day on the phone, all day on Zoom calls.
Yep.
So for those that are interested in Aftershocks, we encourage you to go to their website, aftershocks.com. It's AFTERSHOKZ.
Yeah, go check them out. They're great to have. And now let's get to the episode.
Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, from race to recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, Kenny, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Tom. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
I'd like to introduce you to Christi Beth Adams, the owner and operator of Fleet Feet Nashville.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
She also has a relatively new title, which is model for Lululemon. So she
Nice.
Recently is splattered all over the Lululemon. And where is it at? Green Hills?
The Gulch. There's a new
Gulch.
store in the Gulch, so I'm an ambassador, which feels
So-
very awkward. But they said they wanted me, so I said sure.
Excellent.
And you're representing well. Thank you. So we like that.
Thank you.
So a couple things we want to talk about today. We want to talk about sort of specifically around women in sports and running. But before we get too far into that, maybe you can give us a little history about yourself. Have you been a runner your whole life? Is that something that...
I've been a runner for a little bit. So yes, we have a lot of people that come into the store and first words out of their mouth is, I'm not a runner. But I'm the opposite of that. It's really hard for me to remember a time before running. So it's an identity that I've had for a really long time. Since fourth grade, started running competitively, influenced by an older brother who was running competitively. Yeah. And, when you get dragged to all the meets, you start to say, oh, well, maybe I want to try this. So he was a great influence on me and had the opportunity to run Division I cross country and track at Belmont.
Nice.
Then stay on as an assistant coach with both the girls cross country and track teams. And later on had the opportunity to work and then path to ownership of now 3 running stores here in town. So yes, running is a big part of who I am, and I'm so grateful for the sport, for everything it's given me.
What is your favorite distance then, and what's your favorite distance now?
Oh, great question. So I loved in high school, my thing was the 3,200, which was very boring. It was towards the end of meets, and everybody would leave,
Yes.
and that's when they would go to the concession stands, and
Yeah.
it was like a ghost town. And then I wasn't great at 1,500 meters, but that was a really cool. I came to love that distance in college. It's just there's so much strategy and talent. Like you're just on every lap. You have to be. So I think that's a really fun one that I still enjoy watching. Now I would say half marathon. Half marathon distance is a distance that I don't really have to train for. I can go out. No, I can get it done and not be in pain. I've done obviously a handful of marathons, Boston, Chicago, New York. Those were all great experiences, but there's just a lot of peer pressure to get me to do a marathon. So when I was like, wait a second, why am I doing this? I dropped down to half marathons.
Yeah, I mean, marathons you can't hide, right? Those are the things where you can kind of train for a half marathon. If you miss a couple of sessions, great. You're still going to get through it. But a marathon... Mile 19, mile 20, you're going to know whether or not.
Yes. And this is not a specific plug for what you do, because I tell people this all the time. I actually think the biggest difference between training for a half and a full is you have to pay attention to recovery. And some people do at the half marathon distance as well. It depends on your fitness level. But that is something that when somebody moves to the marathon, I'm like, those are the things you have to do, is just like that training run on your calendar, you have to make recovery a part of the process, or you're not even going to get to race day. Your body's just, it's a lot to train for. So.
Absolutely.
Miles add up on that. It really beats the body up a little bit more. It does. For sure.
So one of the things that we're trying to break is this myth, the idea of the athlete has to be a person that's going to line up to a half marathon or to a marathon, or grew up as an athlete like you have. Obviously, you have a wide variety of people that come into your store. How do you try to break that myth, or is that something that you see? Well, first off, is it something you see as a myth? And if it does, like, well, I'm not an athlete, so I don't deserve these shoes. We get that a lot here. Like, I don't know if I earned it. Do you see that, or do you?
All the time. We see it all the time, and that is, it's very common. I don't believe it, but yes, it is a commonly held ideal. And I think it starts on the playground when we're young. You were either that kid that was able to do that lap around the playground or baseball field, whatever your PE teacher made you do. You either loved PE or you hated PE, and you very early on classify yourself as an athlete or not. And I'm a big believer. I think it's a Bill Bowerman quote: "If you have a body, you're an athlete." And so I think that. It's one of my. If I had one quote, it's that, because people don't realize that we move our body every day, and we are built, I believe, to be athletes. I always go back to the primal things our bodies did, which was, migrate and cover large, expanses of land to hunt or gather. And so I'm just like, I just believe it's what we were biologically created to do, is be athletes. And so people just have to figure out what that means for them. Like, what do they love? Do they love cycling? Do they love dancing? Is it yoga? Is it running? Like, my goal isn't necessarily to make everybody a runner. I think everybody could be if they wanted it. And it does take several weeks. Like, you don't go out day one and get that elusive runner's high. I'm like, no, it does not happen that way. So if you're expecting it, you're automatically going to be like, well, it's not for me. So yes, we see a lot of that as people saying, I'm not an athlete. And I'm like, oh no, you are, the issue is the mental piece, right? Like, your body is, you just have to come to that conclusion.
Yeah. And I think it's almost more exciting. You get people that are like, hey, I've never run a half marathon, but they're runners, right? Like, hey, I'm going to try the half marathon distance. Sometimes the more exciting ones is the folks that are on the couch that think that they just can't do anything, or like, I just don't have the ability to do stuff. And they get their first 5K or they get their first 10K. That to me is like,
it's the best.
That's the best, right? Because you see someone now taking an active role in their lifestyle versus just, again, I mean, my first marathon, I worked my ass off and hurt like crazy when I got done, and I felt accomplished. But that accomplishment to me is great. It is the accomplishment for somebody to be able to move and that didn't think they could or do that. That's the fun thing to watch.
Like you said, again, it's an identity shift.
Yes.
It's not the distance that makes them, again, it could be from couch to 5K or someone who's going from half to full marathon. That's not the qualifier. It's when between their ears, they make that shift that they can.
Yes.
When they thought, I can't.
Yes.
So with what we're seeing is a rise of more women in marathons as well, or in racing. I believe the last study showed that half marathons are now attended more by women than they are by men. Like we tipped that kind of into that. Why do you think that rise is occurring? What happened over the last few years that's becoming a thing?
It'd be interesting to see like what year that happened. I mean, obviously it's I tell people all the time, especially running specialty. I remember running stores when I was young. It was very male dominated as far as ownership of running stores. We would joke that you walk into a store and you'd see a guy in split shorts talking about his 10K PR, and so that's maybe not the type of environment that's super welcoming to a female customer base or beginner customer base. And so I don't know. I'm sure, just evolution of women's rights, that probably went into a lot of different categories. I mean, you see the women that were jumping into marathons when, frankly, people thought, oh, no, you cannot run a marathon. Your uterus is going to fall out. I mean, you say something like that in jest, but you're like, holy shit, people actually told women that. Like, are you kidding me?
People believe that.
So thankfully, science and things continue to evolve, and we learn things about the body. And I would say women are just more empowered, and we have to see representation. So it's something that grows exponentially. So you see women doing half and full marathons, and then you say, oh, okay, well, she can do it, I can do it. So I think you'll just always going to see this exponential growth because the representation is there. And again, when I was a young runner, two athletes that were my mentors, or they weren't active mentors because I didn't know them, but they were the guys on all the posters and in Runner's World. It was two male athletes, Bob Kennedy and Todd Williams. And so I think now there are so many incredible women over the past few years, Des Linden, Shalane Flanagan, all these women who are just badass runners. You get to know a little bit about their personality, and women are just like, I want to get out there and get after it just like these other women.
Yeah.
You're totally inspired by your environment and what you see on TV, or now that we have access to media and things a lot quicker, we get to see those amazing stars that will actually change your mindset. Hopefully inspire you.
Yes,
to
you
get out
see
and do
yourself
things.
out there just like them.
Yep.
Yeah, and in the Ironman scene, I mean, if you look at Miranda Caffrey, who I look every time that woman runs, she's one of the fastest marathon runners out there, men or women, doesn't matter. And her run form is absolutely
beautiful.
Oh, it's
beautiful.
amazing.
It's ridiculously good.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm looking at her going, I want that. I want to run a little bit I want 3 steps like that. That's all I want.
Just three.
Just
would
3.
be good. Yeah.
Those kind of things.
And then the ultra runners, the women are really kicking butt,
crushing
and
it.
it's just they're out there
Pain
winning the
threshold.
overall.
Yeah,
totally.
That's all I'm gonna say. We have a very high
2
pain
words.
threshold. That's right. That's right.
Raise your hand if you pushed a kid out. Anybody?
Yep. Couple of those.
Yeah.
Just endurance, and that has been really exciting to see as the women in the ultra space. Man, they're beasts. I love it.
They're amazing.
Well, I think there's also, I know when Lori and I were in Northern California, we did part of the Fleet Feet group there, and there was very much a better a rise in a socialization too of running, where it became a social group as well.
Right.
Which I think has been kind of a major factor. She showed up obviously to run and get better, but it was also designed really around, hey, I'm going to meet my friends there. We're gonna have a good run. We're gonna go afterwards. Do you see that kind of group?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because interestingly enough, I for most of my running saw myself as a competitive runner, and I haven't raced or trained competitively the last few years. But it hit me. I was like, wait, I think even when I was in high school and in college, I was more of the social runner. I mean, I was good enough at it, to compete. But if I think back on what need I was really fulfilling, it was the relationships I had with the other women on the team. And so that's where I am now. Again, like I said, I'm not trying to set currently, I'm not trying to set any personal records. My marathon PR was pre-babies, and so I keep saying, I really want my marathon to PR to be after my 2 kids. Like, I just want to prove to myself and others that it can be done, but I'm also really lazy, and I don't want to train that hard right now. But it is I have a sweet friend who, during the pandemic, my kids have been at home virtual schooling for the last year, and so I've kind of been stuck at home, and she has driven to my house nearly every Monday morning for the past year for us just to run a half-mile block around my house, since the kids are in there and they're young, and I just love it. It was just our time to talk, and yes, I was getting in 5 miles, but there were times when I wasn't taking another step the whole rest of the week, so it wasn't the 5 miles, it was the time with Jen that I was looking for. So it's that socializing, it's that venting, it's that emotional and mental and spiritual need. It kind of checks all those boxes.
It's therapy.
It is therapy.
Running
I always say
therapy.
Running is therapy. Therapy is also therapy.
Yes.
You can have both.
Yes.
But it's just, and honestly, that is where I would wish more people would run, is just the benefits that it brings,
Yeah, and I think the market also responded to that, because you had the Nike Women's Half Marathon in San Francisco that I think it was 30,000 women, which
Huge.
we showed up. Lori ran in that one, sponsored by Nike. You get you get a necklace at the finish
Tiffany's
line.
necklace.
Tiffany,
That's right.
Tiffany's,
Get a blue
yeah.
box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, know your audience and know the motivation.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, but it was great. Unfortunately, I think they've canceled that. But
Definitely.
women's specific races are
Hot
definitely
chocolate runs and some of the others
bigger
along
ones,
those
yeah.
lines have kind of.
Yeah, it
that
is.
way.
Well, I haven't put much thought into it, but it is interesting. And again, it's a conversation for another podcast. But the women's specific events seem to really boom. And we even had a women's specific half marathon here in Nashville a few years. And it was a really special event. And it never seemed to, it just didn't stick.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure why that is. I'd just be really curious about the business model and
Yeah,
all
that would be
that
neat.
sort of thing. But we're out there. It doesn't have to be a women's specific race. Like I say, it can be Chicago, New York, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So part of how long have you known Fleet Feet? So
as a typical franchisee owning the store, it has been 10 years.
okay. Wow, look at her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you see, the joke used to be in gear and in shoes is sort of shrink it and pink it,
That's
right?
right. Yes.
So
Yes.
how have you seen that evolution over the last few years? I know there's been a huge thrust forward in the last few years. Obviously for the better. What have you seen lately?
Yes, there have been improvements. And to your point, sort of the definition behind shrink it and pink it was taking product that was developed for men and literally scaling it down smaller and changing the colorways.
Yeah.
So that was their way of making it female-oriented product. And we all know that the biomechanics of male versus female, even what feels comfortable to most males compared to females is different. And so I would say now I would say every shoe on our wall, the design that goes into the men's versus the women's shoes is gender specific now. Okay. There were several years where ASICS was like, we have a gender specific Nimbus versus, female versus male. And the stack would be different things about the shoe. Anyway, I think all the companies are doing that now. Gosh, I'm trying to think of the book. There's a great book that talks about how many products are designed for men, from white men, from Band-Aids to seat belts, like how so much of our research is based on the male population, and then we create these products based on that research. Yeah. So anyway, I think the running gear products are getting better. I think we are very much still alienating percent of the population, different body type, sizes. We have a really hard time getting extended sizes from our vendors. A lot of vendors just don't make that product, and because we're a retailer as opposed to a manufacturer or wholesaler, we're sort of in this limbo where we can't, people need the product but we don't produce it, so we kind of are a little bit at a loss. But it has improved over the years, and I think it will continue to. The run space is I love running specialty. I love all the people that work and run specialty. I think they all want to do the right thing. It's a business, right? So they're looking for ways to financially make it sustainable. And so hopefully we can kind of match the needs from vendors to retailers to obviously the end customer.
So as a new manufacturer that comes on, like Ultra is relatively new compared to the other ones. Those folks, did they come out of the gate with sort of men's and women's and being that sensitive? Have you seen newer manufacturers that are taking it on? Do they need education?
Not always, because I'll be honest, most of they're usually male-owned companies, and so they've also had their own evolutions. I think a lot of companies like Hoka, Ultra, those came out of men who wanted a specific product, and then that's why they created the product they did. So nothing wrong with it, but the premise of their companies, even On, I would say the team behind On, they created product for themselves, and they are all men. Now, once they got into the business, of course, they're like, oh wait, we need to also figure out how to take what we wanted out of this product and what we love about this product, and how can we adapt it for our female customers.
Yeah, because I think we all want to know what's going on with Hoka, because men or women,
really,
we just want to know what's going on with
Yes,
we're just here to ask about the Hokas.
Product is hard to get. If you wanna drive out to the coast and jump in the water and swim to a container, you can probably find that
Which
size
one?
12.
I'll go get some.
Yeah, don't tell that to an ocean swimmer over there.
No, good point. Good point.
Yeah.
So one of the main things we want to talk about today was it's fantastic that manufacturers are looking at ways to continue to do gender specific gear. It's fantastic that more women are running than men that are signed up for the event. The unfortunate thing is also there's a rise, it seems, or maybe we're ignorant, and tell me if I am, but there seems to be a more visible rise in the fact that women are having to protect themselves a lot more these days. Right. So you have this weird dichotomy of more women want to get out and run, and more women are signing up for this thing, yet we're creating an environment that's not conducive to allow them to do that. What's been going on? Is it always been there, and we're just now getting a little bit better? I know I'm ignorant and stupid. I will absolutely say that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I know that is because when I went for a run, one of our friends were just on a small little area here. I think it was in Bicentennial, a little wooded area, and she was running in, going, "Okay, all I think about on this run is not today," And I'm like,
You're like, what?
I got shade. I'm happy, right? I hope there's not mud because I got new
Wow.
shoes and I don't want to get them. And she's like, not today. And it blew me away. And so I guess what's going on?
I could talk about this all day. And again, there is a wider conversation right now about how can we be empathetic toward what other people are feeling when it's not something that we've ever experienced.
Exactly.
Whether that's your male versus female, whether that is white versus BIPOC. We have to be able to hear other people and their experience and empathize and understand why when she goes into a wooded area, she's thinking, not today, mother effer, and you're thinking, oh, shade. So it's great that y'all are having those conversations. And again, there's a broader topic about running and being safe, because I have a former female employee, Kim Glenn, African-American woman who was marathon training out in Brentwood back when she worked for us, maybe half a dozen years ago, who got stopped by the police and was questioned pretty aggressively, show your ID, all these things. I don't carry an ID when I go run. No. I've never thought about being stopped by police asking me why I'm running in a certain neighborhood. And so, again, that's a different conversation about safety that I do hope we can kind of improve on, so that anybody who wants to run feels safe going outside and running. What I can directly speak to is the female experience. And yes, to be out on the trails in Percy Warner, even though I've lived in Nashville 20 years, I've never had a bad experience in Percy Warner, but it doesn't stop me from thinking about it anytime I'm out there. And very rarely would I even go out there by myself. But yes, I would love to speak to, some of the things that are happening, especially in Nashville. We've actually had 3 attempted abductions in the past 3 weeks around the Sevier Park area, 20th Avenue, right by Vanderbilt. So we're talking what are considered quote unquote safe areas, middle of the day. One of the girls, the attempt was on a Saturday at like 1:00. It was about a mile from my house, So these aren't, I was running in this bad part of town by myself and it was late and, so it's kind of scary, the courage that somebody has to, again, attempt to lay hands on someone. That's super scary. Had an opportunity actually just last night. If you've been a runner for a long time, you know who Todd Williams is. I mentioned him earlier. He was a phenomenal runner at the University of Tennessee, then went on to be to run professionally with Adidas. And anyway, he was a great professional runner, made 2 Olympic teams. He went on to get his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And several years ago, he created a program called Run Safer. And so he took this experience of being a runner, having 2 daughters, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is sort of those concepts of like, hey, again, especially for females, maybe I'm smaller, maybe my attacker might be larger. What are some things I can do to create space, create time, and put myself in a more advantageous situation. So I'm happy to sort of talk through maybe some of those safety tips that we would like for people to know.
Yeah, that would be great.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
I think that's part of what we wanted to talk about was like, what are those, 3 or 4 things that what we're trying to do is remove the barrier for anybody that wants to run, right? We remove the barrier to anybody that wants to define themselves as an athlete, to get out and moving. And one of the bigger barriers is the fact that I want to sign up for something, but I don't feel safe doing that.
Right.
So what are those things that you learned and that he's proposing that we need to do?
Number 1, and again, some of these things may be really obvious, but I'll kind of start with these are easy things to do. Number 1 is strength in numbers. And so anytime you can walk with a buddy, run with a buddy, that is always best case scenario. Almost any time a woman or a walker or runner is attacked, they are almost always alone. Mm-hmm. So strength in numbers is the number 1 thing. Even if it's with your dog. So, maybe you don't have a partner that you're meeting up to run, but if you have a dog and you can run with your dog, that is safer. So definitely the buddy system. And if you're, that kind of couch to 5K athlete, I'll just tell you that accountability is going to serve you well anyway.
Helps,
not just from a safety standpoint, just from a like, I really don't want to get out of bed today. And your buddy's pinging you saying, okay, I'll see you in 30 minutes. And you're like, dang it. Okay. I can't let Kenny down. I got to go meet him. So safety in numbers, it sounds obvious, but again, I'm a mom. Like I can't always say, oh, I'm going to do my run at this time. Sometimes it's like, oh, I've got 30 minutes. It's 2:00. I got to go. But if we could just all slow down and say, okay, how many of my runs this week can I plan to meet a run group, a Franklin Road Runners, meet with a Fleet Feet training program, meet with a buddy. So be intentional. Just don't take that for granted that you're just going to run out your door by yourself. So strength in numbers, I would say, is number 1. So scenario where, where you can't meet up with somebody. The other thing that would be smart to do is to at least let somebody know that you're going out. And this is something I can do better. So it's, hey, Kenny, I'm texting you saying, I'm going to run the red trail. I think it's going to take me 55 minutes. I'm starting now. And if I don't text you in 55 minutes, that's a red flag, right?
Yeah.
And maybe we're friends, and so we've got our GPS turned on. We've got our find a friend. You can see where somebody's phone is.
Yeah.
It's an inconvenience, but I run with my phone. There's a lot of great products out there. You can actually Garmin, almost all the Garmin products. You've got GPS. They all have safety features. So that's another thing too. I think all 3 of us right now have some sort of smartwatch on our wrist. And so familiarize yourself with some of the products you already have. even, on my iPhone, if you hit certain buttons, it automatically comes up with sort of like an SOS call. So anyway, if you are by yourself, think about what you have. Think about, how do I understand how my watch works when it comes to safety, what I can do with my phone, who's tracking me, who did I text, always letting somebody know where I am and when to be expected back. The other thing we talked a little bit last night are there are different products. People have different comfort levels. We did bring in sort of a mace for runners. Race, that's
Race.
ironic that puts those two together. But it's sort of just Velcro straps onto your hand, just like a handheld water bottle would. And so you've got it in your hand. You can run with it comfortably. There are also some sort of like sound devices, and so we have one in the store right now. You can clip to your shorts, you can clip to your sports bra, you pull it, it makes an obnoxiously loud sound, and it's reusable. It's something a lot of people we heard felt comfortable with. Some people may not feel comfortable using mace. The other thing I would emphasize that Todd always emphasizes is practice. So if you do have
really good point.
mace, if you do, there's a product called Go Guard, which is essentially like having a little sort of plastic serrated knife on your finger. A lot of people run trails with a Go Guard. If you have that siren, it's practice with it. And that feels awkward, right? It feels scary where you're like, I'm simulating this thing, but you practice everything. My 10-year-old's practicing baseball, so that when he's in a game and he's in a stressful situation where there's more pressure, that he doesn't have to think about those things. And so that was the big thing Todd always emphasizes is us talking about this right now. It's helpful, but if we don't practice, as he says, dress rehearsal these things, it's not going to become automatic. And we need it to become automatic.
Absolutely. I think it's completely overlooked, thinking that you have the device, that you feel safe, right? You're good. All the emergency responders practice all the time, right? They train to be able to adjust to that, because you have to be able to focus mentally that something's going on and not emotionally lose it. Right. When this strikes you, whatever happens is going to hit you mentally.
You're going to get an adrenaline rush. There's going to be a lot of things happening.
Exactly. There's no time. There's no thinking. So what do you? Muscle memory, right?
It needs to be muscle memory. It needs to be It's always on my hip or whatever. So I reach down and just pull automatically without thinking about it. You have to get to that level of it.
Absolutely. And there's one thing that I dress rehearsal often. I won't, since we've got these really great microphones, or maybe I will. But I love this concept that I learned from Todd several years ago, and it's a safety name. And again, this is a situation where you're by yourself, and so and this isn't just runners, right? This could be if you're in a parking lot. It can be when you're walking your dog. This isn't just for women, but to have a safety name. And so if you're in a situation where you're being approached or being attacked, specifically yelling a name. So I think the earlier thought was if you were to yell fire or help, but now they say to yell a person's name, that the psychology of that your attacker thinks, oh, your buddy is just around the corner. Again, sometimes if you meet with Franklin Roadrunners, right, somebody might be 50 yards ahead of you or 50 yards behind you, but that concept of I'm going to say a name, Kenny. I'm going to yell that out. Kenny's not there, but the attacker's like, oh shit, Kenny's around the corner, so that's a very simple one. I don't have to carry anything on me, but what's your safety name?
A specific name will respond, as opposed to just yelling help. People will hesitate and wait. They've got a window of time.
Absolutely. So I love that.
That's a good one.
Put that in your toolbox.
If anybody wants to yell Kenny,
I'm going to yell Kenny all the time. I'm going to go outside right now and yell Kenny.
Go practice it. Practice it today.
It's going to be a really weird walk into.
I love the safety
into
name.
Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Kenny. I like it.
Another one I'll talk about. Again, this is all the low hanging fruit stuff. I grew up. I never listened to music growing up. I grew up thinking I was always going to be that like fourth grade girl that got abducted on a run. So I was like, had the fear of God in me. So we didn't listen to our Walkmans. So I never ran with music. Nowadays, I really enjoy listening to a podcast when I go out and run. And so another big thing is that situational awareness. Either choose not to wear headphones, or in reality, a lot of people do need some music for motivation. Yeah. Go with one earbud, or Aftershocks is a product that it's actually bone conduction, so it sits outside of the ear. Mm-hmm. If you've never put on a pair and demoed them, it's kind of unbelievable until you try it and you're like, oh wow, I can clearly hear the podcast, but I can hear that car driving up behind me. I can hear footsteps. I can hear another runner coming up behind me. So it just allows for that awareness. So that's a big one. I mean, you guys have seen people in races, or if you're on your bike, y'all are triathletes. So it's like, on your left and people don't respond. You're like, oh my gosh.
Getting people to be situationally aware, even when they don't have headphones on, is huge.
It's hard.
Yeah. Like you come up on somebody, a lot of cyclists are right behind with no awareness of what's going on around them because they're just in that focus. Same with running. They're out just kind of in that. And then if you put earbuds in, forget about it. Right. They're in a completely different planet at that point.
Yeah, and it's Aftershocks, right?
Aftershocks.
Yeah, those, I got a buddy of mine that wears those. They're fantastic,
yeah.
right? Because they are bone induction and allows you to do that. Because
so you can pay attention.
I am a cyclist that puts music in one ear because it's a 3-hour ride by myself and I'm lonely and I need music.
I need some
so
motivation.
I think it's a fantastic thing.
Right. It's, again, you're going to listen to music, you're going to listen to podcasts. Just be smart about it.
Yeah.
Be smart, Kenny. I know that's hard for you.
The one thing you said I want to make sure that's clear too before we got on the air was the idea that it's let's just dispel the myth it's not what you wear, that it's attackers aren't like looking at going, wow, that's a t-shirt, I don't think I'm going to attack. I mean, do you want to talk about that a minute?
Yeah, so off air, Todd Williams and I were having this conversation and he was sort of asking me, so, Nike Pro shorts, that's a really short fitted short that a lot of people run in. If you live in Tennessee, you know how humid it is in the summer.
Absolutely.
And I'm a sports bra and shorts girl all the way. And so I don't know. I think if somebody is mentally crazy enough to put their hands on you, in my opinion, they are looking for an opportunity. They are looking for a target. And whether you're in a sports bra or a short sleeve shirt, I don't think it matters. And again, there have been a lot of times where people said, well, she was wearing this, it doesn't matter. And ideally we would say these attackers wouldn't exist and these attacks wouldn't happen. But again, that's also a sort of pie in the sky aspirational, like we're not going to get down to 0 attacks.
Well, it's not like the attacks started happening all of a sudden because sports bras and shorts were being worn. I mean, the attacks were happening long before, back in the Victorian age.
Absolutely.
They're wearing a lot more clothes.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna change what I wear, when I go outside. I'm gonna dress by the temperature.
Yeah, and I think
if it's cold, I'm putting on a bunch of layers. If it's hot, I'm wearing as little as possible. I don't care if it's pretty, but
well, and I think that's important. Is you dress to whatever level of comfort that you think you need for that run. And if you're not comfortable just in a sports bra and you want to wear a tank top over that, go nuts.
Right.
But you're doing it not because I need to, get ready to make sure an attacker is. So therefore, I have to make myself less attractive or less,
less attractive in a t-shirt versus
in a t-shirt. Yeah, like it's
exactly.
Ridiculous.
It's that awareness of, and again, the attacks that happened recently, broad daylight. So you think about not putting yourself in certain situations, and it's like, gosh, the reality is, you would never dream that middle of the day is a sort of perfect situation. And so it's all these things of like, what can you control? Like you can't control that crazy person, but what is within your control and how can you just be more aware? I think those are the biggest things.
So how do we how do we get the education outside? We talk about what women should do to protect themselves and how they should be acting, but it's not all their responsibility. How do we educate the males in this, like us, like Kenny and I? How do we educate us to, like, what do we need to be doing? We're not empathetic to it because we don't experience those situations. What is it that we can be doing that we can be then educating other men who are then going to hopefully educate their sons and kind of go that way, because we have to take at least some of the responsibility. I mean, come on.
It's about time.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. I think, well, like Kenny said, you have a conversation with Lori, or you have a conversation with a female, running buddy, and a lot of men have a wife or a daughter or a niece, so you're right. Like, they may not have those thoughts, but hearing these stories, and then once you've heard the story, it is on you to be aware and to be cognizant. And so I think that is step one. Another thing that just came to mind when you asked that question, I had never thought about this before, but there's a guy who shops at Fleet Feet. We go to church together, super good guy, transitioned from road to trails just a year or so ago. And he told me that he does not run in Percy Warner when it's dark in the mornings. Let me take this back. I think he went out to Percy Warner.
Yeah.
Best time he could go before the kids got up, before he got to work. So he went out to Percy Warner. It was dark. He was on the trails, and he crossed paths with a female runner. And he saw her tense up and sort of look at him. And it had never crossed his mind until that moment. He's like, she doesn't know me.
Exactly.
But he saw that she was scared and that she was aware. And after that day, I mean, I just think this is such a level of empathy and awareness. He's like, I don't run by myself on the trails in Percy when it's dark. Because when I cross a female, I don't want her to feel
that
unsafe.
way. Yeah, exactly.
I was just like, oh my gosh, that he was thinking like that, but I think it's just the conversations and the encouragement. And
well, I know there's also so Lori and I, quick story, right? Lori and I were going for a run, and I was getting annoyed because I'm like, just run. Like, I may not have time, or I'm doing triathlon training, so sometimes I'm sore. And she's like, well, I want to run around the neighborhood. I'm thinking, well, we're out in the country. Just go. She's like, but I went with her, right? And she was no more than 20 yards behind me in the middle of the country and got a cat call. And it shocked me. I'm like, and she looks at me like, this is why I don't do this, right? And I think, to your points, the other end, what men can do on the other end of everything that you mentioned, like running groups, make sure you know where you're going, is to make sure to stop and tell, whoever, your friend, your wife, your daughters, like, no, I want to make sure that we are on that same page. So there can be a time when, like you said, I just want to go out and run too, right? Well, I just want to go for a run, and maybe I shouldn't, you forget about those kind of things until you're in that situation. That it's up to us also to say, hey, I want to know where you're going. I want to know what's going on too. So I can make sure that we can look out for you as well, is make sure that that's an open
conversation.
Don't kind of roll. And I have to be honest, I rolled my eyes, and I'm like, God, just go run. I run, just go run. And it was like, yeah, and that's,
She's like, see?
Yeah,
see?
right? And, it was a jerk.
Offering to run when you can, if you can't. And you initiating is what it sounded like. Like, not always waiting for us to say, hey, will you run with me? Or, hey, this is where I'm going. It's like, hey, I know this training partner trains so many days a week. Hey, I'll be your person, that you text, because I know you're out there training by yourself a lot.
Yep. So I'm going to ask an impossible task too, which is there a way that the community, Fleet Feet, Franklin Roadrunners, other folks try to influence sort of city council on the way we're doing things too? Like, college campuses had to adjust and start putting blue lights into college campuses because there was just way too much attacks going on. I used to work at a place that had a blue zones, where we looked at blue zones as a healthier place to create cities. Is there a way we can start influencing, better lighting? Do we, on well-worn paths that everybody runs on, can we look at putting more safety features in it? Can we create an environment that's a little bit safer. Do we have the power to do that, or am I just thinking that that's adorable, pat me on the forehead?
No, I think it's a great question, and honestly, that's not one that I think about, and I don't know if it's because I'm not as knowledgeable of that space, sort of, what does get done at the city council level, what are the levers that we have to pull? I don't know. I would say the answer is yes. I'm a big believer that we've got a lot of smart people in the running community, and I'm sure there is someone who knows that system better than I do.
Yeah.
Because I think that is one of the things. I will go back to when we were doing this clinic last night. Todd rolled through all these things. And then the questions got really specific. It was like, what if I get pushed down from behind?
Yeah.
Or again, I'm kind of staying in my lane with like the low hanging fruit.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, these are the things that I'm like, dude, if we just did these handful of things consistently, I think we'd be pretty good. But I hope there's somebody out there that says, oh, I've been involved in city council, or I'm a runner, or I'm aware that this is an issue. And, there have been a few times in the past where either through a vendor or just Fleet Feet on our own, we've gone to councils and said, hey, can we pay for signage, or can we do this and that? We used to sell these park sweatshirts, and the money would go back to the parks. There have been some times we've said, hey, we have this money, XYZ Park. What can be done with it? And not gotten an answer. And I'm like, wait, what? You always think things are like financial issues, but no, I think we could raise the money. It's then the getting it done. I don't know. I don't know how those things happen, whether it's lighting or clearing out brush along a path that maybe tends to get overgrown really quickly, and maybe there's less visuals for somebody on the path. But like, hey, if you know of something, reach out to us.
Yeah, because
we'll try to make it happen.
Yeah, we had a woman in here just the other day, and I was saying, hey, we're going to have Christi Beth on, and we were talking about running and what women can do to be more safe. And she's like, I had to shut down. I wanted to run another 1K, but there was overgrown brush and other things that made her uncomfortable, and she shut down. So I believe, there are simple things that the city can do too. I mean, the blue light thing, obviously that costs money and it would be difficult to do, but simple things like, make sure that the lights that you do have are working, make sure that the brush that is not overgrown. I'm particularly not thrilled with the way Williamson County handles bike lanes, because there's non-existent bike lanes.
There's bike lanes?
No, there's not.
Okay.
There's like 80 feet
There's
of
a
it.
couple.
And then, right. There's a bike lane for, just enough to make you think there's a bike lane, and then it stops. But it's just... more and more people are moving in from out of the Tennessee area. More and more people have an expectation that they want to be able to live a lifestyle that allows them to be outdoors. And I feel like if we can increase that voice a little bit, maybe that's just a little bit of what we can do.
Yeah, and that's why they're coming here, to be outside.
Yeah.
I mean,
But to your point, they're expecting the infrastructure that they had.
Exactly.
I remember I lived out in California for a little while, and I'm like, oh, crosswalks, like cars stopped and pedestrians went, and I'm like, a crosswalk in Tennessee, you know
Good
that
luck.
it's like, really, there's a crosswalk there?
Do you feel lucky?
It's so funny, because I always had this idea of like, oh, California, those people are always zooming around and really aggressive, but I'm like, no, they know how to coexist with cyclists and runners, and so maybe that, all these influx of people moving to Tennessee, sometimes we're like, no, we're closed. State is closed. There's no vacancy. But maybe that's something that we will see gets improved.
Yeah, it needs to be a wider variety of again, empathy and sort of other people's sort of view of the world and how things could be great. So just to do a quick recap, Hokas aren't coming soon. We want women to sign up. We want women to get off the couch. We want women to strive for those goals they want. Like you said, you came after childbirth, a couple of kids. I want to hit that marathon PR. I want to be able to do that. Absolutely, 100% encourage and make sure that women are going after whatever the hell they want.
Absolutely.
Right? Second thing is look at those safety features to be able to do that. So, know your environment, know that people are around, know your safety equipment, practice it, then that's a really good one. I mean, it's one thing to buy one
Definitely
and then just
practice.
leave it and practice that.
Yeah.
And the last thing is, what can we do as a community to start letting the folks that are in charge of the community on how you can do a little bit better job in helping foster an environment that's a little bit better. Anything else?
I think that's great. I just, the other thing I want to reference, if I haven't already, again, Todd Williams is the sort of creator of Run Safer. And so runsafer.com, you can see a lot of the safety tips I referenced, and there are several video clips. His wife, Lindsay, will do these different things. And what I didn't get into today are some of those basic self-defense strategies and maneuvers. And so there are videos online, and that would be a really, really great resource for folks to follow up on.
Yeah, and I think that would be an appropriate place to go do that, rather than us trying to explain things that somebody directly knows what they're doing.
Right. It's also hard to explain via podcast. They're very physical things.
Do one a couple on Tom, and I'll explain it to the audience.
Awesome.
Yeah,
we'll practice after.
Now
we'll
Tom's elbow's out of socket, and he's writing input.
Yeah, we'll make sure to put that in the show notes.
There you go.
For sure.
So what's going on with Fleet Feet in the next couple of months? Is anything kind of fun? What do you guys got going on?
We are busy, which is such a blessing. This time last year, we were closed, and I had to furlough about 65 employees. I was spending most of my days in tears and working out cash flow to try to understand how long we could sustain the business in a shutdown. And a year makes a really big difference. So I'm very hopeful. I think that a lot of vendors, a lot of the industry is predicting this to be the next running boom for a couple different reasons. A lot of people during the pandemic picked up walking and running, again, maybe for mental health reasons, maybe because their gym was closed. So we're seeing a lot more folks in the sport. So there's a huge influx of folks that are coming into the sport. And now with the weather getting nicer, that's going to sort of encourage and motivate more of that activity. The other thing, again, are minority groups who have not felt welcome in the space in the past. And I always thought running was a super welcoming space. Mm-hmm. And we even say in the store, all people, all paces, but just have realized in the past year that, again, not everybody, just like how you were running in that area and felt safe and the female runner didn't. I go out every day running, feeling relatively safe, and there are a lot of runners in underrepresented minority groups that haven't felt safe, and we think that's getting better. And so I do hope we see more participation and more diversity in the sport. So all that to say, at Fleet Feet, we are, from a business standpoint, we're just trying to get staffed up. We are serving people every day, right and left, from people who are, I'm signed up to do Chicago, and Chicago says the marathon's on. Or people are just coming in that said, I need some walk-in shoes. I started this a few months ago, and I'm kind of enjoying it, and the weather's getting nice. And so we don't have anything new. Well, we've got some things coming up. If you follow us, fleetfeetnashville.com is our website, Fleet Feet Nashville on Instagram and also on Twitter. One of the things we're really trying to do is engage the community. We've got a really cool event coming up called Run Discover, encouraging people in Nashville to maybe hit some parts of running routes in other parts of town that they haven't hit up.
That'd be great.
So that's what we're looking for. You talked about Franklin Road Runners, and we love all these different groups of runners in Nashville, is we're really trying to figure out a way to sort of cross-pollinate and get folks to go out to East Nasty, and somebody from East Nasty to, heaven forbid, drive all the way to Franklin, So
such a long drive.
It is. But these groups have cropped up because it's convenient, and you live and work and go to school, with these people in these communities, and it's wonderful. But Nashville is growing, but it's still a small town. We've got that small town feel. So we really want to make sure we are fostering that across the little run groups in Nashville. We just want to be a resource for them.
Good. And you've intentionally, I think we talked earlier, you're intentionally working with other vendors that you believe also have a cause. It's not just a logo anymore for you. It's not just you're being intentional about those kind of partnerships that you're making. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. I'm I believe you should do meaningful and purposeful work. I've always thought that with Fleet Feet. And as I'm growing and maturing, I get to align my business with my own personal beliefs. And I think I tried to separate those things for a really long time, but it is my business. And so I'm not a my way or the highway type of person, but to align those things feels better for me. Because I'm constantly making decisions that support my value system, and those aren't separate in my personal versus business life. And so I just feel really honored that I'm in a position not only to take care of a phenomenal staff, because our employees are great. I want to be financially viable for a long time so that they have a place where they can come to and love working. But then I also want to try to serve community needs. Not just that runner that's trying to qualify for Boston. That's great, and we can help that person. But we also donate shoes to folks that have just recently come out of incarceration. We've partnered with Metro Police Department, and they say, hey, a lot of people they come into jail without shoes, and now they're going out into the community, and they don't have clothes and shoes. So we now fully stock their sort of closet with footwear so that people are re-entering and they've got some shoes, They might get a Hoka before you get a Hoka.
I'd probably.
Oh, wow.
Kenny.
Sorry. That's Destiny calling, by the way.
No, really.
We're going to say that.
Is that
That
a
was Destiny.
sign
No, her
for
name
me
is
to stop
Destiny.
talking?
She needs a cryo appointment. Sorry about that. Well, we
great.
appreciate your time today. This has been a great conversation, and it's one that we were looking forward to doing because we know that we need to be more empathetic as just people, and if we can make an environment to make sure that everyone stays healthy and active, that's
what we want.
That's what we want.
That's what we want. Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on. Really great to meet you and talk with you and learn more about you.
You're welcome.
And for everybody, if you like what you're hearing, please give us a couple thumbs up. 5 would be great. 5 stars. Any reviews? Let us know what kind of content you like. If you want more like this, let us know. We're open to that as we book our guests and move on with that. So thank you all very much.